Luca Nation, episode 708, and this is one that I don't think you guys have heard from in quite some time. So this is a gentleman sitting across from me who has his hands in the hobby in a variety of different ways. One, I've seen you in pictures with quite a few athletes and on the golf course. So they're your friends, you're hanging out and all that. But you're also planning the biggest event in the space. So you're a sports marketer, you're an event planner, you're someone that I got to know a little bit behind the scenes, and you'll describe yourself a lot better than I could ever, right? But welcome to the Lucas Tigers and Bronze show, and I'm very excited to kind of get to know you over this next hour. And I think our community, who's asked to have you on the show for quite some time, there couldn't be a better time with 40 days till National Atlantic City to have you on, get your origin story, hear how you kind of got involved with the National, and also talk about how things have changed and improved over the years.
Well, thank you very much. I appreciate the invitation, and trust me, I have a lot of respect for you and Cage. I think you guys are doing a great job and really supportive of the industry. And thank you for supporting the National.
You're someone that found the industry through business, the way I understood, right? Through your relationships with the players, the teams. That actually led you to collecting. Is that right to say, right?
Well, my background, I started back in New York. I was with a New York advertising agency, and so my background is more marketing, advertising, and promotion. And then I was assigned the task to find a athlete to basically identify with a brand that we were coming out with, and it happened to be Sugar Ray Leonard. And I found out that Sugar Ray Leonard, I mean, when I talked to his attorney, he sent me a one-page bio and an 8x10 photo, and I'm thinking to myself, wow, this guy is like at that particular time, I think it was in the 70s, 80s, whatever.
This is when boxing
Basically,
was the number one sport, right?
oh
Like one
yeah,
of the biggest sports.
and he was huge at the time with Seven Up. I don't know if your audience may not remember the Seven Up commercials back then, but he was very prominent. And so I had the opportunity to talk to him and his agent, and we were doing a new product for Carnation, sugar-free hot cocoa. And so I got him involved, and I also got his son involved, Sugar Ray Jr. But it got me thinking. It's like, wow, I want to package an athlete just like, I package a box of hot cocoa because I didn't think these guys are packaged. Now, I'm walking down the aisles. We had like 2,000 people in our office. And I'm thinking to myself, well, if I had this idea and I'm thinking about breaking off and doing it, they're much smarter people here than me. And I said, why aren't they thinking about this? Why, but it's one of those things where it's just like, you got the feeling and the impulse and you just took advantage of it. And I did. I quit and I got to meet Pete Maravich and I told him the story, and Pete said, I wish I had somebody like you when I was playing because I didn't have a shoe contract. I didn't have a sock contract. I said, well, Pete, that's what I want to do. And so he hooked me up with a young agent, and I told it, this is all like within 2 days.
What kind of ad campaign did you do for Pistol Pete? Was it like gun control?
I didn't do anything for
if you
Pistol
did sugar-free hot chocolate, we use Sugar Ray Leonard. I figure maybe the pistol is like an anti-gun move. I mean, like I'm trying to figure out. I'm trying to figure out Sugar Ray. He's sugar. How do you do a sugar-free thing with Sugar Ray?
But with Pete, I had just met him. It wasn't I wasn't representing him or that, but I was talking to him, and he introduced me to a young agent. And that young agent had about 30 players like A, AA, and AAA. And one of the players was Don Mattingly, and he was in AAA. And so I said to him, listen, I can handle everything off the field for you. You just handle the field contracts. It gives you more time to focus in. And back then, the agents, there was no check and balance. Everybody was doing different things. And so he thought that was a great idea. I went home, created a business plan, pitched it to him, and all of a sudden now, he said, all right, you can handle all my clients. And it was Harold Reynolds, Howard Johnson, and a number of guys. And at that time, licensing was growing, so I was actually pretty active. And now I'm on my own. Schulte Sports Marketing in New York, and I'm thinking, oh, this is gonna be great. And Mattingly it was 83 that I started working with him.
He was in Columbus.
Yeah, well, yeah, and then in '84 was really the first year in the big leagues, and so, I was with him at that time, and I've got some great stories about the first 3 or 4 years because Donnie was so.
Is it fair to call you the first who? So
Jerry
these were
Maguire?
just athletes. Yeah, the first year. These were. I read a great book. I think it's the Entrepreneur Athlete or something like what it's called. And the whole premise was for a long time athletes were just athletes. But there came a point in the 80s where athletes started thinking of themselves like businesses. You even just mentioned you went home and put together a business plan based on Don Mattingly. Right? Not on Coca-Cola or CVS or Walgreens. You created a business plan for how to monetize the athlete. And this is accepted today, right?
Well, I think it wasn't. Yeah, it was evolving back then too, because again, back then, the one agent handled all aspects of the player's career. I mean, whether it was real estate or life insurance or off the field like appearances. And there's no check and balance. And so at that time, it was like the agents were thinking, well, you know what? Let's specialize. Let's find a real estate guy that can report to me, being the agent, and let's find a life insurance guy that report to me. And the athletes like that much better because there's more check and balance. I don't want to go into it, but there was a lot of agents that took advantage of athletes back at the time. Paying Peter to rob Paul, whatever, and so the timing was perfect for me, and I got to work with Mattingly and Hojo and a lot of other guys, but at the time too, part of my responsibility was one, obviously maximize opportunities, but also to protect the players too. Whether it be like forged autographs or people taking advantage of their name and likeness. So I was always out there looking, and obviously that brought me into the hobby because a lot of that is where it was started. And back in the '80s, it was a little sketchy in terms of what was going on and how people were taking advantage of the system. And so I was very in tune, very in contact with all the other agents, with MLBPA, with MLB, and so I got really kind of entrenched in that whole mindset. And and as I was going on, I start to understand about collecting, and I started to feel like, hey, this isn't bad. And then one major PR guy in New York had given me a movie poster for a birthday, and basically he told me the story on it, and how a collectible it is, and how, like back in the early days, how they transferred the movie posters. You had a movie house had to send back the old ones to get a new one, and all of a sudden I'm thinking, wow, that's cool. And it was more about the story than anything else that got me saying, hey, this is what I want. This is what I want to do. I want to collect movie posters, original vintage.
Do you remember the
posters.
First movie poster that someone gave you? What
Casablanca.
Was the first one?
No, wow, I wish it was. No, it was an old Yankee movie with Babe Ruth. And it was a one sheet. I mean, at the time it wasn't that valuable. It's still. I mean, it's a great piece, but I grew in terms of I set parameters for myself in terms of collecting. I had to be pre-1970. I had to be vintage. I had to be pristine and all that. I had to be sports related. But that's where I started thinking, well, this is, collecting is such a cool thing. And so I got more involved in the hobby, as my clients did. And I know you're asking me how I got involved with the National, but I got to the point where I got to know Mike Burkus pretty well. And Mike and I hit it off way before I started with the National. And then I think it was in Baltimore, he asked me if I'd get involved with the National and help with the PR and the communications, and I just, it was just the timing was right for me, and I thought it was a great opportunity, so I said sure, and here it is 12 years later, and like I said earlier, the first day I started with the National, and like this, I know July 27th. It's going to be so exciting for me as we walk in and open those doors.
Ray, I love listening to that because, and so will everyone in the hobby, right? Because I don't know whether or not I followed it, but everybody's kind of gotten used to Shyway vlog stories and stuff like that. So everybody's used to in the hobby, you know, people just kind of going off on tangents and not even making any sense. So I'm loving this so far, man. My co-host here, he thinks the Nationals should be in Las Vegas every year. Tell him why that's dumb.
Wow, you know, and we get that question all the time, but if you knew the behind the scenes in terms of what it takes to put on a national, you'd understand that. And I'll just give you a few simple things to think about.
Yes,
one,
shoot.
The hotels. We have a guy on staff that's he's 100% working with the hotels. And I say that because if you're thinking, you know, this year we may have up to 80 to 90, 100,000 people. Now, when you go into a situation like that, you've got to make sure that the hotels understand what you're about. You want to make sure that the hotels don't, you know, gouge you on pricing. That you understand that there's a fixed price in there, so that you do have the people that say, "Hey, I can afford that. I can come." That's huge, and so that's one aspect of it. The space is another aspect of it. Everything's got to be on one floor, so you can't go double decker. And the other thing is too, we have to secure the venues like maybe 2 or 3 years in advance. A lot of cities, a lot of municipalities aren't willing to do that. You know, they're always looking to say, well, maybe we can get something better. Baltimore is a great example. I think people would love to go back to Baltimore because when Baltimore we had 2 great shows. Now Baltimore may not be is an East Coast venue, obviously, but the show and the people was spectacular. We can't go back there because they won't guarantee us, a space maybe 2 years out, and that's the way it works, you know, in terms of the members. Uh, the national management, they'll go out and they'll do their due diligence and say, okay, here are like 3 venues to look at, but the members or the exhibitors actually vote on it. So they're the ones who vote on where to go. Now it may be limited because we can't do it in Dallas, we can't do it in San Francisco, we can't do it in Miami because of limitations on everything I basically just told you. So it's kind of like trying to turn a aircraft carrier like like you would like a small VW. You just can't do it. It's just impossible to make that turn, make that distinction. So we'd love to have it. I mean, Chicago is perfect because we get, and I'll throw in a third thing, and I don't know if many of you have done this, but dealing with unions, it's a hit or miss. I mean, Philadelphia is a very tough union town, and where they may have 36
Philadelphia. In Philadelphia, when you're building something, and you're building in a union building, Cage, so listen to this. Building in a union building, and you're not using union workers.
Big rat.
These guys will bring out a blow-up inflatable rat with a group of them, and they will stand outside of your building for the entire day.
Yeah, there's a dozen of them in New York City at any given time.
What are you doing?
I worked on Major League Baseball All-Star game in Philadelphia. It was right before the show, and I got a call saying that it's potentially of shutting it down. And I said, why? And they said union. So I went back in the back room, and come to find that there was 36 union members, or different union members, and it wasn't they were mad at us, they were mad at themselves. You know, one guy had crossed over.
Happens to me a lot, Ray. It happens to me a lot. I'm mad
and so,
myself all the time.
But my point being is that, like in Chicago, they bend over backwards. The exhibitors get to take their car on the floor. I mean, that's unheard of. There's no carry-in fees. There's a lot of things that make it very special that, maybe a lot of exhibitors now take for granted. But I tell you, if we went to a new venue, it's going to be totally different. So, Cleveland was the same way. Cleveland was great. Cleveland, and that may come back because I think the city has come in and purchased the property. But it's very, very limited in terms of the show of this magnitude to get venues that are on check off all the boxes. It just really is. So I wish we could, honestly, but.
You know what I'm curious about? So there's the working side of Ray, but then there's like the Ray the person. And I'm curious about you, Ray, is why do this, right? Like you could be golfing all day. You have, you have Don Mattingly's a friend, you have all these friends in higher places, as they say. Why still do this? You could be playing golf.
Well, I do get time to do that. I mean, I do get to make my own schedule, but I love it. I love packaging. I love promoting. I love creating situations that can succeed and being part of something on the ground floor. And I see that now in our industry. I see that where we are evolving, and I think more and more people are thinking 3 steps ahead versus in the past. I think everybody was just resting on their laurels and wondering, hey, you know what? It's a good day. Tomorrow will be a good day. The next day will be a good day. We don't see that anymore, and we're in a position now where who knows what's going to happen, with the blockchain and NFTs and
Yuck.
influencers and all the above. I mean, it's
Damn
just
influencers.
Damn
it's just
influencers peddling their NFTs.
Influencers.
yeah.
Right. You know what I'm gonna say? I'm gonna ask you a question. I already know how you're gonna answer it, so I'll be as leading with it as I can. There are some people who say, "All right, the National, they should be concerned. You got this show that's great in Dallas. You got this show that's great in Fenway. You got this show that's great in Miami. You got Mint Collective, which I know you saw all the stuff that was going on Mint Collective as well. We saw all that fun stuff, and we talk to people in the hobby, breakers who see other breakers. We talk to to auction houses that see other auction houses, and I believe the smart ones say what I think you're about to say, which is that's all good. That means the pie is growing. Is that what you think when you see these other shows sort of being successful, and then you realize the National is going to be a behemoth anyway? What's your thought on those? Any kind of like?
No, I would say, to answer your question, I would say absolutely. When I first saw that, with all the local shows and the regional shows, um, I wasn't really concerned at all. I really wasn't, because I see how many new people are coming into the hobby. I mean, even in Chicago, Cage, we did a survey of people that were buying online, tickets online. And we asked them, is this, how many nationals have you attended? And over 64% said this was the first one. And on all the interviews and people I talked to on the floor, I can't tell you how many said, you know what, I used to collect about 5 to 10 years ago.
Yep.
I went in a different direction, but now I'm back. And that to me just says that there's so much more upside to this industry. And I did a lot of reading. I did a lot of research in terms of what other experts, not necessarily in our industry, but like in the broader collectible industry worldwide, and they all agree that we're just at a fraction of what we can be in terms of the number of people involved in collecting. So yeah, we're always
Why do they
looking at.
say that? Why do they say that? What made them say that?
Well, I think just from personal experience. I think just from knowing. I mean, from like people that are getting involved in the hobby, that are bringing money into the hobby. People like I can tell you firsthand the number of people internationally that are involved in our hobby is unbelievable. I don't think we even would have said this would be something that we'd see in 2022. But from social media. From even the DMs that I get all the time, from whether it can be Korea, it can be Germany, Australia, Shanghai. I mean, it's just unbelievable the amount of people are involved in this. So I just think I don't think that's a concern at all. I know.
I'm curious. So like when you have a show, 64% of people, this is their first time coming. Does that put pressure on you to innovate and make it better than it was last year? Or does that put pressure on you to say, hey, let me kind of keep it the way it is. What we have, this formula that we've put together is working?
Well, I think to answer your question, I think the industry does it themselves. We take a lot of credit for it in terms of putting on the show. But if you think about it, everybody that's going to be coming, all the exhibitors and corporates that are coming to the National, they're doing it. They're the ones who are being innovative. They're the ones that are taking it to another level. And I give so much credit to like the manufacturers years ago. And it was Mike Burkus who said, at one point, kids under 12 got in free. That was on Sundays. And then we opened it up to like seven, all 5 days. And because everyone was saying, well, we need more kids in the hobby. We need more kids in the hobby. Well, there was a precedent, and Mike started it, I feel. But the manufacturers came in and they supported it. In other words, they did kid breaks, they did, giveaways, and all the exhibitors welcomed that too. So, we saw
Am I
kids coming
hearing?
back.
Are we dropping a promotion live here on Lucas Tigers and Bronze? Are we doing a national? Kids under 18 are free at this year's national?
No, kids under 12.
12.
12. Under
12
12
to 18 is the new 12. Have you met these 18-year-olds?
Right.
They might as well be 12.
33 is the new 16. Just ask my co-host.
Yeah,
There
I don't know. Just
there
kidding.
he is. There he is.
Kids
Andrew-
under 12 are free?
Andrew, I wish we could do something like that, but my point is now, like we've got more kids. My biggest excitement, the reason why I always get so excited, and it really stems from the fact that we now, as an industry, we now as a national, have more families coming than ever before. We're talking about the dad, the son, the daughter, the mother, the grandpa, the grandma. I mean, they're all coming, and there's something for everyone. We've expanded in terms of, from sports cards to pop culture, and all the activities that go on in the show. There is something for everybody now, and I think that's one of the things that's helped us grow, is that it's now a family affair. It's not just the dad and the son. It's more the entire family, and so I love that. I love seeing that, and I love my passion is when I see a young boy, could be 12, 13 years old, talking to his dad, and his dad's looking up at a Mickey Mantle jersey, and he's telling him, hey, when I was a kid, Mickey was my guy, and the kid goes, no, Dad, it's Aaron Judge. And it's like that right there. The dad connects and the kid connects, and that's what it's all about. That's what, for me, that this whole hobby is. But the more important, the national is dad connecting with his son, daughter, and the mom connecting. It's really exciting to see.
Right. Just real quick, if we could dig into so this year it's at AC, and you mentioned grandpa, mom, son, dad.
Grandma's there too. I don't know what grandma's doing, but she's there.
Believe it or not, my grandma was the one that was buying me cards from the get. Like, remember Terrell Davis, Brett Favre? That was my grandma at like little flea markets in like on a Sunday, like in the shopping center. But is the reason to be held like in AC? There is kind of all that attraction. It might not be near the convention center, but it's near the boardwalk. So, are you thinking like if we go through that demo, is it the boardwalk, the Ferris wheels, the cotton candy, all that stuff? That's the attraction. Or will there be things for the individuals right there at the convention center?
I think the venue could be anywhere. I don't think that wasn't my point. My point is that everything inside the convention center has got something for everybody. And and I think with kids loving the collecting now, I think the grandmas and grandpas, I think they're starting to feel, hey, you know what? If I can buy cards for my kids and nieces, nephews, and great grandkids, that's a great thing, a great feeling for them too, to know that these kids, because now again the kids are accepting and actually trading and collecting cards, where maybe 10 years ago that wasn't necessarily the case. They may get a pack of cards and like it, but now the kids are they're going to trade nights, they're going on eBay, they're doing a lot of different things.
They have the
now.
little Zion cases, like the little.
Oh yeah, I mean, and now with Pokemon and Yu-Gi and all these other things that are coming into play, I think that helps expand the universe for us too. And I know, and one of the things I'm very excited about, and I started talking with Ryan Johnson a couple of years ago about the trade night. These guys were doing a great trade night in the hotels, but they needed more space. And so they asked if would the National be interested in it. We couldn't do it last year, But this year, we're going to have a national trade night inside the convention center. So you're talking about being innovative. You're talking about, taking it to the next level. It's going to be huge on a Thursday night, right after the national closes at 6 p.m. These guys, I think it's Tracy Hackler and Ryan are kind of headlining it, but it's going to be the national trade night and free. But you'll see.
Any athletes coming?
Well, I'm sure there are. I mean, I think that's something that Ryan and Tracy will make some announcements about, and I don't want to steal their thunder because it's their trade night. We're just hosting it, but I know for a fact that these guys have big ideas and they see the big picture, and so yeah, I would assume so, but I can't answer that for.
Hey Ray, you want to host a cigar night, national sponsor cigar night? Because I'm throwing it if you want to. Let's rock. Tobacco cards and tobacco.
Cage, that's a great idea. If you start it, I'll get on board and promote it for you.
Boom! There we go.
and there are venues there that can happen. But no,
I think beginning of the show, Ray, I was going to ask you. You got the dream job. I mean, you're working with athletes. Now you're planning events. That are as big as 100,000 people. I was like, what made you different than everyone else? Like, why did you get that opportunity? I think I know now. I think I put you as one of the best promoters in the game, bar none.
well, I appreciate that.
So if we had a cigar night and you promoted it, I don't even know if we'd have the capacity.
You want to know why? You want to know why? And Ray, I got to ask you about this. There are so many egos in this. I mean, you talk about influencers, people who myself included. I mean, my head barely fits in rooms sometimes. You don't have an ego. You have a genuine desire to put on the best convention that you can. You repost things from people that, promote the hobby, promote shows. You promote other shows. Anybody who's mentioning, the national and any of that stuff, you repost things all the time. I don't, and Andrew, I could be wrong. Maybe you're seeing something different, but I don't get any, I'm in it for Ray. There's no hey, look at me, Ray, Sandra D, whatever, it's just, hey, whatever I can do to make the national better, that's what I'm going to do. And that's awesome. So kudos to you, man, because I don't know if I could do that. If I would have got with the national, I'd be standing there going, you can't come and you can't come and you can't sit at my table. The power might go to my big ass head a little bit. It doesn't go to yours, which is awesome.
Well, I appreciate the words, Cage. But, the thing is, I kind of when I say this, I kind of grew up with a lot of these guys, with Jimmy Spence and other guys that are throughout the hobby. And I like everybody. And I was again, at the time I was an agent. So I talked and worked with everybody. Right. And then as I got involved with the national, I said, I kept the same mindset. I said, this is an industry. I don't have any favorites. And I think that's one of the reasons why they asked me to co-host the industry summit, because I was kind of like Switzerland, because I didn't favor one or the other. And then when they asked me to work on the Mint Collective, it was the same thing. They knew that I was going to kind of focus in on what was best for the show, not necessarily who I liked or disliked. And I don't really dislike anybody anyway, but I think for me, it's the challenge of I look at it that there's a playing field out there. There's a lot of things, like I said earlier, evolving. I just like being part of that. I like being part of that and kind of being on the ground floor and sometimes being able to kickstart something where it grows and goes in the right direction. There's so many times guys will call me up and just ask me for my thoughts, just kind of as a sounding board, and I'm fine with that. I'm okay with that. But it goes back to my packaging, my branding, promotion from my advertising days, where I just see this as a huge, and I think if the industry was stagnant, I don't think I'd be as excited. But you guys know this for sure. We don't know what's coming next. We don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. Really.
The people who listen to the show know what's happening. At least they have a little bit of a better advantage. That's why they tune in, because they do want to have an advantage from the 4 decades of experience from my co-host. But that's not what I'm going to ask you, right? And there's no playing Switzerland here.
Uh-oh.
What do you think about the new golf league in? Is it Dubai?
Wow. That's a good question, and I'll answer it
Ray's
this
a
way.
huge golfer. That's why I'm asking, guys.
I'm a purist, I guess, and so I think I go with side more with the PGA. I really do. I don't think that it's good to come in and just buy something, and I feel like I feel that's the case. I feel there's more downside because of that. Maybe this year, maybe next year, who knows? But no, I'm not really crazy about it, and I think it's a huge distraction, and I kind of a little upset about it because it is a distraction, especially like with the U.S. Open coming.
Does Tiger win another major?
I'm going to say yes. I think
people love Tiger. People
it's
will
easier
bet on
now
Tiger.
too. I mean, DeChambeau and a bunch of like legit names are now not going to be able to play against him.
DeChambeau has the biggest golf club in the game. He puts
DeChambeau.
But have you seen his putter?
Yeah.
No, listen. I watch his golf game, but I don't spend time staring at his putter like you.
But the one thing the one thing you got to love about Tiger is he's a combination. He's old school, but I think he's gearing up. I mean, he's saying, I need one more. And I think that's his goal. And I think once he has a goal like that, yeah, I think he's capable of doing it. Sure. I think obviously his health is, if he can get healthy, I'd say yes. I mean, we don't know, his nagging injuries, if that's going to linger but if he gets healthy, I'd definitely say yes.
So Ray, I got to ask you this, right? Because you just mentioned Tiger being old school. So 2-part question, typical Cage, one question, right? In 27 parts, right? It's how it goes. Do you consider yourself old school, new school, a little bit of both? And then more importantly, because the National has been around for so long, and because you've dealt with some of the same vendors for a long time, I know there are some old school guys. How do you keep everybody happy knowing that now there is this mix, this intersection of kind of like new blood, old blood? I would imagine at times, some of the guys who've been there for a long time don't like some of the new stuff encroaching on their turf or whatever it may be. I'm curious how you deal with that and whether you've had to deal with anything, along those lines.
Sure. I think, when I look back to my consulting days with all the leagues, I mean, I worked on the Super Bowl, I worked on NHL, NBA, MLB, All-Star games. I mean, and so I was directly involved with the exhibitors. I was the one who went out and secured them and managed them. And so back in those days, and that was the 90s, I mean, so I understood their mindset. I understood, where they were coming from, all the little things that kind of, ticked them off. And so to answer your question, I think that, in today's world, I know that, when the influencers came on board, everybody was like, well, it's pump and dump and all that. But I think the majority of the influencers are really good guys and really secure in their thinking about promoting the hobby and all that. And I get along great with them. And so I think we just try. It's just open communication. I think with a lot of the exhibitors now, when they see the boatload of people coming into the National and their sales increasing, they have a tendency to say, oh, you know what? All right, maybe I can live with this. And so it's one thing if we had to deal with some really nasty guys, but I love the attitude of the old school, the new school, the influences and all that. And so to answer your question, I think we all get along.
Breaking Pavilion is sort of like the Showtime. It's like sort of like, the Showtime Lakers out there. It's sort of like it's become like the go-to entertainment part of it. Go back 5-10 years. Could you have imagined that little area of the National? Could you have thought of that? What's your thought about the Breaking Pavilion?
I remember that vividly. I think it was back in Cleveland, and a conversation with Mike Burkus and David Gelfman, who basically came in and kind of he oversees the Breakers Pavilion, just like TriStar oversees the Autograph Pavilion, and we didn't know what to expect, but it was one of those things where it was worth the look. It was worth the like you talk about being innovative. You know, nobody really knows being innovative until you do it, right? And so we all thought it was like, hey, this is worth it. If it doesn't succeed, it's still worth it. And I think it was good timing at that point where I know David had worked very hard to bring in enough breakers to make it worthwhile for to be a pavilion. And as a grown, I don't know. I'll ask you a question, Cage. And I
Shoot.
mean, did the breakers help build the industry? I mean, would we be where we are without breakers?
100%. I think we would not be where we are. I think they did help build the industry. I think it adds a level of excitement. It is not for everyone. There are different types of breaks, so it does cast a wider net. I mean, we've had Leighton Sheldon vintage breaks on, who I know, exhibits there, and that's a very different kind of break, right? He's not breaking, whatever it may be. I will tell you, just like anything else, though, in thriving markets that do pull back, sometimes you see, an area like breaking will take some of the hit, right? There's a lot of consolidation. I think what we're going to see now is a lot of consolidation in that breaking area, where we've got a couple of big companies that have their own breaking apps and people on there. And you don't see as many startup, I went to Target, grabbed a bunch of Prism blasters, come on Instagram and break with me. It's tougher to source product for the little guys like that. And I think you're going to see a lot of those little guys kind of edged out. But to your answer, 100%. Like I remember breaking before there was this. I remember breaking in 2011, 2010. On the Breakers TV, and it was very rudimentary. But yeah, if you couldn't get the product yourself, or you wanted to only collect a certain team, or you wanted to collect a certain player, you buy in the breaks. It's a cool way of doing it. And
Sure.
And let me tell you, I know people who watch. It's a weird thing, right? My kids are nuts. But this is the generation, right? They will watch someone else play video games for hours.
Right.
And I'll say, what the hell are you doing? I'll buy you a gift card. Get on Nintendo. Do whatever it is. Play the game yourself. Right. And they say, no. This is fun. I'm watching this guy do it. He's already loaded up and got all this, blah, 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 blah. It's fun. And they'll watch. They'll watch it on I got a 65-inch TV. They'll put YouTube on. They'll put a Twitch stream.
They'll watch Twitch? What
somebody
game?
else play video games, all right? Building Minecraft, locations and all this other crap. That watch people play Fortnite. They're all YouTubers. Right. This is what they do. They have millions of views crazy. Watching video games. That's breaking, because just like these YouTubers who spend their day and their money building up their character, their skins, their weapons, you name it, so that someone can watch them, and breakers can break flawless when I'm breaking clearly wipe my ass donruss. Sorry, that's what it's just what I call it. That's what I call it. I'm sorry, but I can watch people open up, 7 figures worth of product. I can watch Drake break products, right? So yes, it's cool to be involved in it, but I think it's almost created this sort of like an entertainment thing, which works at National. You don't have to be breaking. You could watch somebody break. Look at this product that's opening. I mean,
well, it's funny.
Last year, the year before, right? Remember that 55 Bowman break that was done there? That's awesome.
Yeah. It's funny you mention that, because, I mean, first of all, I love breaking. I think it's a great opportunity to expand the hobby. I'm a firm believer in that. But when I have media come in, mainstream media come into the National, and what I normally do is I take them around and showcase some of the high points, some of the current stuff, and I take them to the Breaker Pavilion first, and they're just amazed. They're just I've had them get inside and do co-breaks with some of the guys there, and boy, we don't take it for granted, but we see it more so than like mainstream people that have never seen this before. And for them to look at this, it's kind of like, oh my gosh, I didn't realize you could do that. Wow, I'm going to go home, I'm going to check this out. And so not that we're trying to convert people, but I think the fact that they're so amazed and so impressed, I see that as an opportunity. And anytime we get to kind of expand our horizons, I think it's a good thing, especially if we're okay with the program and the process it goes through. Then let's do it.
I'll tell you, Ray, my thought on breaking and having the national in Atlantic City kind of makes sense for this is, we've seen a rise in online gambling. We've seen a rise in legalized gambling. New York finally legalized sports betting. And I'm talking about fantasy sports. I'm talking about, actual sports betting. I'm talking about, casino betting. Like, this was stuff that was taboo 5-10 years ago, like it wasn't. Now it's
Sure.
Every commercial and every sports game is bet on this. It's, if it's not Caesars, it's MGM. It's this guy gives you more money, this guy gives you a bigger bonus, this guy blah blah blah. And what's amazing is that break room that you're going to have at National is going to have higher stakes than probably 2/3 of what's being regulated by the gambling authority there in Atlantic City. And so, but exactly. It's a way to have fun, and everybody in this is sort of a gambler, right? I mean,
Right.
We're gambling on our player, we're gambling on our team, we're gambling on that prospect who came out in Bowman 3 years ago. We're sort of making our bets, and breaking sort of lets you do that, right? You got a shot of getting something way more than what you paid for. Of course, you got a shot of losing, but that's the way it works. It's exciting.
You know what a sure thing is? Betting on Ray. Do you recognize this?
Yeah, I see it. Yeah, I see it.
So this is out of 250. Everyone got a kind of a Honus Wagner reprint as they walked into National with Kid, you see that? You got one of these?
Yeah, I could see it.
You got one too?
I'm sure I gave it away. I give everything away to kids
250.
when I was in there. Well, some kid got a cool thing.
No, but that's a good point, though, Andrew. I mean, there's so much stuff that's going to be given away at the National. I mean, like I said earlier, the manufacturers, but the exhibitors and the auction houses, and everybody is really gearing up to, whether it's T-shirts or cards or whatever. I mean, you can walk in there and walk out with enough stuff to make you happy for quite a while, and we hope
I walk out with a triple logo, man.
Yeah.
Fingers.
But I mean, the thing is, and again, just getting back to like the National in terms of how it's perceived, I always say that you don't even have to buy anything when you come to the National. Just the experience of walking through there and seeing everything and listening to all the stories. I can't tell you how many times I eavesdrop on stories, whether exhibitors explain to them about this card or this jersey or whatever. I love that stuff, and I know a lot of other people too. So it's like walking through a museum, and if you buy something, it's great. And people call me all the time saying, hey, can I get this graded, or can I get this authenticated, or how do I go about it? And I just say, hey, listen, just come down, because it will happen. It will, anything and everything. And our motto is that if you can't find it at the National, it just doesn't exist. So it's pretty exciting.
Last question, at least for me. You golf with, I think you were golfing with Tony La Russa, St. Louis Cardinals manager.
Oh no, I didn't. I wasn't golfing with him. When was this you're talking about?
I don't know. I follow you on Instagram, brother.
Oh, you're probably talking about Tony Loyacano, the guy from Upper Deck.
Oh, that was a big guy on Clubhouse. He was all over Clubhouse, Tony.
Yeah,
he was on every room.
Yeah,
he started his own company, right? He was an Upper Deck exec, and he started his own thing, right?
Yeah, he was back with the Michael Jordan era, and so he started a company called Kono, and he's based out of San Diego. And again, I enjoy talking to Tony because he's like one of these vision guys. He's about talking about the blockchain and everything else that's going to happen or is in the process of happening. And Andrew, to answer your question earlier, to me I'm fascinated by that. Whether it succeeds or fails, I don't know. But those are things that I have an appetite for in terms of I just want to figure out how that fits into our business. How does that fit into the industry, into the hobby? And one of the things.
So this card last night, real quick, Ray, was sold on Whatnot. Okay.
Uh-oh.
So today, the buyer canceled the order. Right. So I sold this last night on Whatnot, and the buyer canceled the order today. Why do you think that is? Well, it's probably because they didn't have a good game.
He had a bad game and he lost. If they would have won the game and up 3-2, he wouldn't have done that.
With the blockchain, all it really does, in the simplicity, is it allows you to sell this card with no refunds, buybacks, all that. It's instant.
Right. No backsies.
No backsies.
So it's a couple things, Ray, for you. So, and we should not turn this into a blockchain thing. But from a national standpoint, one of the things that you learned about early on in the 80s is the authenticity of things, right?
Absolutely.
And and you talk about Jimmy Spence. You talk about the folks that you met along the way, right? A whole industry of authentication. Blockchain can be used for that. But more importantly, I think from your world, the ease of giving out those freebies for your vendors. Like at Mint Collective, you probably saw Panini had their booth, and if you signed up, they gave you a free card to anybody. Right. Like there was no limitation. And it's out of 8, and it's digital, and it's on your phone, and the whole 9 yards. They don't have to carry with them stacks of thousands of cards to bring. You walk into that booth, boom, you got a freebie. Same kind of stuff. Like that's part of what I think the use case for it is. But we'll see, man. I'm not the smartest person on earth. I'm in like the lower third, but I can't.
But I'm glad you brought up authentication, because I mean, back in the 80s, I was adamant about authentication. I was so adamant. I mean, even with Mickey Mantle and some of the other athletes that were signing, I became friends with Michael Posner at the MLB, and we worked on a program. That's when MLB started their authentication program, and I lent Don Mattingly as a spokesperson for the MLB authentication. And, we went through that from the start and to where it is now. But we were so adamant about that because we could see it coming. We could see, it's like anything else, and not just in our industry. But if you get away with something, you're not going to stop there. You're just going to keep going and going and going and expand that rubber band to whenever somebody says stop. And I saw that like in the 80s with signatures and at the time, even with Jimmy and the JSA and PSA and Beckett, I mean there was still some speculation. There's still some hesitation in terms of is this the companies that we really want to feel good about in terms of given authentication? I mean, they proved themselves over and over again since then. But it was a time where it was up in the air. But I think Major League Baseball, to tell you the truth, helped out a lot because they focused in on the importance of it, not only for the consumer but for the athletes. And trust me, the athletes are just as important because you've seen it, not so much now, but back then, where they didn't think signing an autograph was that important. They may have somebody else do it. And so, but now the focus is, we're all in a good place, right? We're all in a good place with authentication, and I think that that's a plus.
Well, Ray, listen, you're a national treasure for the hobby. You like how I did that? But you said something there. I got to challenge it. You said something. You like everybody. Everybody likes you. You don't dislike anybody. So let's give you a chance to change that. Let's get into the cage for a second. Sorry about that, Ray. I got to do it to you. You're a nice guy, but it is what it is. Number one, behind the scenes. I
like Andrew though. You can't tell me I can't like Andrew.
You can like Andrew. But you may hate me in a minute. That's what I'm saying. Give our listeners something that you don't talk. I mean, you can talk about the national, you can talk about the unions, you can talk about setting up, you can talk about the breakers. Give me something that happened behind the scenes that you had to deal with. There's a story that people haven't known. Give me like a fight between two guys that set up. One guy set up on the other one's foot, or this one took this from this one. He set up a display. The display was too high, and it was fisticuffs behind the scenes setting up on a Wednesday night. Give me a fun little story.
I like this. I'm liking this.
Well, I tell you what. We have a great team at the National.
You can change the names to protect the innocent. You can change the name. You don't have to say who it is. Okay?
We have a great team. A guy named Larry Ross is he kind of like handles our operations. He's a former cop. He's from DC, and he is awesome. And I say that because I mean I've got, like I said, with all the leagues, I've got that experience, and he does such a great job. And he's the type of guy that can look 3 steps ahead. And people were always talking about, well, there's so much, let's say. Counterfeit or bogus stuff sold at the national. We have a really, really good relationship with national, regional, and local authorities. A lot of people don't realize that they're on the floor, and it's not something we come out and promote. We're not saying, hey, watch out. But I guarantee you, when somebody comes to me and says, "Well, somebody did this, do that," it's addressed and it's taken care of. I know we had that situation.
I just got 21 vibes, like the eye in the sky is always watching. I just got the chills.
Oh yeah, I mean, there's feds walking around the floor all the time, but anyway, my point being is that there was a situation. I think it was in Cleveland where this and the thing is which we benefit now where we didn't maybe 10 years ago is like because of social media, because everybody's connected, everybody knows each other, they know who they are, they know their kids and all that. It's a little tougher to get away with something. And this guy set up at the National, and he was selling like Joe DiMaggio signed photos for like $35, and his whole table was just really, really bad. And somebody came to one of us, and it wasn't me, but one of our team, and it was taken care of like that. I mean, it was one of those
Turns out it was John DiMaggio signatures. That could do it for $35.
And you've never heard from this
that's
guy
even lower for John. But anyway, my point being is that the exhibitors. I think the exhibitors have enough faith in us to know that if something is not right, it's going to be fixed or addressed. And so they didn't panic. Like I remember in the early days, people would be throwing things up in the air. Oh, you can't do that. You can't do it. Well, it doesn't happen that way because they know things are there's a process. And so this guy was actually, he didn't even get to start the show. We had some authenticators come over just to kind of back us up and say, yeah, these are absolutely no good. The whole table was no good. And so we had the local police come in and escort him off the property. And
who gets the table?
Well, the table. I mean,
it's auctioned off.
I don't know how they handled that, but the point is that it was, it's handled. So there's really.
Is it Gary Vee?
There's really, I mean, I could tell you more stories about my time in the leagues, but because back then it was a lot different.
The Nationals, the Nationals and stuff. I want to hear, this dealer, like 2 years ago, this guy's been setting up a table one forever, and somebody slid you a little extra green to get the best table when you walk in.
I'll tell you one thing.
Like a fight going on.
I'm not going to give up names, but I'll tell you one thing.
No, I don't need the names. We don't want the names.
I'll tell you one thing it's kind of a pet peeve for me, and this is in any show, and since because I learned this when doing the league shows, you have an exhibitor and they bring in maybe it's memorabilia, signed memorabilia, whatever, and they keep bringing it in, and like year after year it's the same item. And you ask them, you say, listen, why haven't you sold this for the last 3 years? Oh, I didn't get the price, or I didn't get this. They don't have the understanding, the mentality to understand how to move product, and I think that's one of the things that I look when I look at somebody's table. It's not as bad now as it used to be, but it used to be pretty bad where you see the same stuff year in, year out, and you kind of say, why don't you just take 20% off, sell it, and get into something else and move product versus that. But that was the old timers.
I understand it all, Ray. I ran into Ray at National last year. He was standing there with a whole bunch of Pete Incaviglia game used stuff. And I'm like, what the hell? Why would he buy this? Turns out Ray just didn't like looking at it. The guy had it on his table for 20 years, so he bought out the inventory.
Put him out of his misery.
So the guy had to come with something new next year. Now I get it. I understand. Yep. I get it. I understand, Ray.
Well, I love it. Ray, are your tables sold out the year before? Like basically at Chicago of last year, would I have had to buy a table at Atlantic City this year?
Well, technically, I mean, we were sold out after Chicago. But sometimes there's guys that will give up tables because, something they're doing with their family or some situation where they can't attend, so they give up their table. But yeah, it's usually, I mean, we're sold out for Chicago next year.
What percentage of tables are
amazing.
grandfathered in? What percentage of tables are new?
Oh, which percentage are great grandfathered in?
Well,
the people that don't stand, they just are in seats the whole time.
Yeah, I'd say 99.9% of them have been doing the show for years. Very few, if any, give up their table.
We need a little new blood, though. You know that 80-20 rule, the Pareto principle.
But Ray's in a tough spot because the way to do that is to charge more for the table because obviously a hot commodity, but he doesn't want to do that to the people who've been loyal and been with him for doing the show for as long as they've been doing it. That's a tough spot. You hit 60 years old,
you have to retire your table.
Oh, here he goes.
Well, that's what they call age discrimination, Andrew.
Here he goes. He's gone.
I don't think that's going to go over well, but appreciate the comment though.
I love it.
Well, I was saying to the person relinquishing the table, it's good for the hobby.
Yeah. No, and you make a good point because, and I see there's ways of doing it. And I mean, when you own a table, there's a lot of times you'll bring somebody else in with you. And I think a lot of the younger people now are getting to understand that and participate. I love it actually. And, I've gone to, I like the trade night. I just do because I think it's an exciting opportunity. It's something we've never done before. But, you need a younger audience for that. Technically, I mean, yeah, you're right. I mean, 40, 50, 60 probably doesn't get excited about trade night as a 20 or actually 18.
Age doesn't get excited about anything ever.
Yeah.
For any reason.
Yeah, I'm very unexcitable.
But I think I think I've been to just recently actually I've been to a show that probably is an old show, right? And so you had exhibitors that have been grandfather. This is a regional show I'm talking about, but there's all older guys, and so like that night I'm walking through the hotel lobby and thinking, well, hopefully there's going to be people trade and all that. There was nobody, right? And then I thought about it and I said, wow. They don't have the right exhibitors. They don't have the right, age bracket, and and you do need to start making that transition. And
well, so, listen, give Ryan and you and Kentucky Roadshow and all the guys who have built up the trade night some credit for building it up. It doesn't just happen. At East Coast National, which is what they call the Hofstra show, they did it for the first night ever. It was sort of like a hosted trade night, one of the nights that they just had their show, and it was pretty empty. I mean, they had it upstairs, from the venue. It was a small kind of space. There wasn't really much going on. There wasn't any kind of like main stage, no entertainment on there. And I brought my son. He had a great time because he loves trading. But it's not just something, hey, I'm going to snap my fingers, say trade night, and all of a sudden the whole world shows up. That's not the way it works.
No, and it's a good point. And right now I'm working with my co-host Ted Barker on the Industry Summit in Las Vegas in the fall. And we have a card show. We've added a card show. And
now we're talking.
And so what I've been talking to people that is rather than just go out and say we're selling it, we're going out and inviting specific people, that we know that will make a difference in terms of the excitement, the perception, all the above, and kind of give a reflection of where the actual industry is going forward versus what is the old time perspective. So we're very, I mean, and not only are we doing a card show.
Let me open this.
You think that's your invitation to the summit? You think it's in the mail? It probably got lost in the mail, Andrew. He said people who make a difference.
Dear Mr. Goldberg and Mr. Cage, we would be proud to have you at the Vegas Summit.
We regret to let you know the D-list has not been invited to this year's summit.
I thought you were going to say we're sold out. Yeah.
Keep it G-rated and appropriate as there will be kids and women in the audience. Love, right. I'd be honored to be there, right.
Ray, one more from me, and we'll be mindful of your time. If you had to go outside your stated collecting parameters, and you were able to buy yourself a movie poster after 1970 that doesn't have to be sports related, give me one or two posters you'd buy for your collection.
Well, if you're talking about, from a interest and
anything. No, money is no object.
There is a big difference between buying something for an investment and buying something just because you like it.
So give me one for investment and one because you want to hang it on your wall.
Well, I really couldn't answer nothing for investment.
I'm trying,
Ray.
70. I'm trying, Dan.
Nothing over 1970 for investment. I like Field of Dreams. I mean, to me, I just like that.
There we go.
I think
that's Ray. That's you and the National. If you build it, they will come.
Yeah, and that would be something I would hang in my walls. I mean, but I wouldn't. I mean, it's not. I mean, and I do like the fact that there are the new ones out there and they're getting signed. I think that's a whole different perspective, and which is a good one. That's a good collecting perspective. It's just not mine. And
you know what's funny about that, Ray? My co-host is not an auto guy either. So we once early on in our show had a debate. You know the Julius Erving, Magic Johnson, Larry Bird card?
Sure.
So I always thought that card getting autographed by the three of them would add tremendous value, make it so cool and iconic. But my good friend here said, no, Andrew, pump the brakes. Not so fast. Yeah. What you really want is the perfect condition of that card. Untouched, unabridged.
But you don't want it signed on a nice 9 or 10.
Well, Cage is probably he's probably like me. I mean, remember Cage, and we were like in the 80s, and they were saying you never sign a card. Never. You never sign a card. I mean, you destroy the value of it when you sign it. Now that's all changed, and now
you see some of the prices. You see some of the prices of like the people who did buck that trend and got 33 Gaudi signed by Ruth. What are those selling for? Or Gehrig ones, or the nice mantles that are signed on the cards. I mean, mantles signed a lot. Forget about it. Duke Snider. It doesn't matter. You can get those for like $40 now. Tax evasion. I get you every time. You got to sign everything in the world. But I mean, it is what it is. At least that's what I heard.
Well, let me ask you guys a question. Like, are you coming down for all 5 days? And what are you looking for? What are you looking to see?
I personally like being a dealer, where people come to me and I'm able to, using my inventory, give contextual gifts to people, do deals, take care of the kids, make sure that they leave with something nice. At night, we get invited to like a variety of different events that these new startups put together with all their VC money.
And there's going to be a lot of parties this year.
Yeah, open open bar, appetizers.
Whoever's throwing them, make sure I get him. I'm not invited to anything, Ray. I'm like, they put me in the corner with the dunce hat on. So
I will make sure of that, and
that I get the dunce hat. Nice.
We have a community that is bought into our NFT project, which is more kind of like a membership pass, membership token. And one of the benefits is we're going to do a cigar night. So nothing crazy, but outdoors, Cuban or Mexican, some kind of nice cigars that Cage curates.
Not Cuban, that's illegal.
No, we don't. We're friends with Cuba now, dude. You don't know. You don't watch the news.
You could go there. You could go there.
Hey, Cage.
Yes,
Cage. I have a fact sheet that I send out to all the media, right? So, that somebody wants credentials, I send out the credential request form and a fact sheet. You got to give me the information about the cigar night.
All right, let's do it. There. Nice, let's do it. You got to buy an NFT though. That's the problem. No, but Ray, we'll definitely do that. I love the movie collecting stuff. I love all of what you bring to the table. It's authentic. We talk about authentication. There's one thing that Spence, PSA. None of these guys need to provide authentication for you. I think it shines through in an hour of the episode. You really love the hobby. You're rooting for everybody to succeed, not just your own corner of it. And you could see that people who put on other shows, they reach out to you for help, and you are generous with your time and with your skill set. You really are somebody who's a great ambassador for the hobby. We were really lucky to have you on. Thank you very much for spending some time with us. Andrew, you got any other questions for Ray?
No, but we'll coordinate because I do want to tell him a little bit more about the cigar night and all that stuff. I think it'll be fun for all the listeners. Luca Nation, I hope you enjoyed this. June 14th, we're recording this. month and a half away from National. I hope we see all of you guys there. Last year was huge. This year it's going to be even bigger. Thank you for everything. Thank you, Ray.
I enjoyed it.
So thank you all for listening to another episode of Lucas, Tigers, and Bronzo My. I wanted to tell you about a new service that we have starting as of today, and I'm really, really excited to bring it to you guys. So as a part of our partnership with SGC, we got 50 free submissions every single month, and many of you have taken advantage of that. And it's amazing that we could have the opportunity to 650 episodes, 675 episodes in, to go ahead and give back to our community. As people were sending those cards in, they asked, can we send 5, 10, 20 more cards to you guys? We'll pay for it, but we wanted them graded with SGC. You guys know SGC is turning cards around in 13 to 14 business days, have incredible customer service, and their secondary market values are going up day after day after day. And that's exciting for the hobby and exciting for the grading landscape. So we didn't want to just rush into it. We wanted to do it right. And what we did was I relocated here to Boca Raton, Florida. I opened up a P.O. box maybe 5 minutes away from SGC, and I will be hand delivering and hand picking up the cards. So you don't have to worry about anyone else touching your cards. It will be me, and I will update you every step of the way. So here's how it's going to work. I'm going to personally pick up the cards from a P.O. box, prep them, new card saver, new penny sleeve, and deliver them to SGC every single Tuesday. Why Tuesday? Well, it lets the stragglers over the weekend come back through on Monday and gives me a day to prep, and it basically gives SGC the entire week to work on grading those cards. Once your cards pop, only then at the end of the process will you be paying for the service. It's $25 per card, simple as that, and the turnaround times have never been faster. We're hearing right now 13, 14, less than 20 business days. So there it is. 9170 Glades Road, number 135 is the P.O. Box in Boca Raton, Florida, 33434. 9170 Glades Road, number 135, Boca Raton, Florida, 33434. Of course, you could shoot me an email or shoot me a text anytime, and I'm always available. Many of you already have my email. It's iamandrewgoldberg@gmail.com. or my cell phone number, 215-519-9154. Reach out with any questions. I could walk you through the process. I've hopped on the call with quite a few of you, and I'm happy to do that. Love you, Luca Nation.